All right, back to the school time. This should be exciting. Hopefully that you did practice your factoring over the break. I'm really hoping that you did do that. You will be having a test coming up on Thursday. Um, this part of the notes is for challenge factoring. Um, you are going to have to factor by grouping. It's going to tell you to group, and you must do it that way. So this type of factoring requires you to group a trinomial and a monomial. Now, if you remember, trinomial has 3 terms, monomial has 1 term. So you must group 3 together and then 1 by itself. After you group your polynomial of 4 or more terms correctly, you're going to create dots, or the difference of 2 squares. And then factor it further. Okay, so you're looking to force or to create dots. So there's 2 different types of problems on here, factoring by grouping. And then there's one that isn't grouping at all. There's 4 examples on this to help you do the worksheet. But the one type of grouping, we're going to say here that the constant, okay, constant is a number without a variable. So the constant term with the negative sign gets grouped by itself. Okay, so you're looking for that. So if I look here in this polynomial, I see x squared minus 25 plus 8x plus 16. I have 2 constants. I have this 25 and I have this 16. So the one that has the negative is going to get grouped by itself. And then here's another hint, because you'll see down in example 3. You see here, this example has x squared, this has no x, this has x to the power 1, and this has y squared. So this is a distinct quadratic term, okay? So this has got an x, this doesn't have any, this has an x. I would group these 3 together and this one by itself. So the term with a unique, different quadratic variable gets grouped by itself. Okay, so let's see how these work. This says factor by grouping, and if it says grouping, you must group. Okay, don't try to do something funny and put these together. That's not what this is. This is challenge factoring, and you must do it by grouping. So I'm looking through here and I'm like, okay, so is there a GCF? Because remember, you always first should look for a GCF. So this has 2 x's, this has no x's. So far, variable-wise, it's not looking like there's a GCF. Numeric-wise, the only thing that divides 25 is 25 and 5, and that doesn't divide 8. So I have no GCF here. So the hint that I gave you above in the notes here was the variable that was negative, and let me just highlight this, I guess, okay? The variable that had the negative is going to get grouped by itself. So I'm going to group this as a trinomial, x squared plus 8x plus 16, and then I'm going to group that one off by itself. All right, so I'm going to put my grouping symbol here as such. Now, I'm then going to take this 25 and rewrite it. So I go my x squared plus 8x plus 16, subtract, I'm going to rewrite 25 as 5 squared with the squaring on the outside. Because if you notice here, this is a perfect square trinomial, and those always factor into a single binomial squared. So it multiplies to 16, adds to 8. Well, that would be 4 and 4. Signs are the same, they're both plus. So you're going to get two exactly the same. X plus 4 times x plus 4 is this. Now here you can clearly see the dots. This is dots. All right, and remember what we did before. Dots always factors as a plus b times a minus b. So this is my a and this is my b. I don't like the way that looks. It's too chunky. All right, I'm going to try that again. Do a thinner line. All right, so let's first set it up. Remember, it's always a plus b times a minus b. This here is my a. This here is my b. So what do I have? I have x plus 4 plus 5, because 5 is my b, and then x plus 4 minus 5. Now, you might think you're done here, but you're not, because you have to combine like terms in the grouping. X plus 4 plus 5 is really x plus 9. I don't know why this pen writer's acting up, but it is. Sorry. And then x plus 4 minus 5 is x minus 1. And now I'm finished. This is fully factored, and I did it by grouping. So again, what was the hint? Well, the hint was to take the constant term that was negative and move that by itself. Okay, so that constant with the negative sign gets grouped by itself. All right, let's try the next one. Now remember, you always got to look for GCF. We looked for a GCF here and we didn't find one. But if you look at this problem, this got 3 x's, this has 2 x's, this has 1 x, and this has 1 x. So there is a GCF. And remember, you should always factor out a GCF first. Yeah, there it is. All right. So the GCF here is just a single x. So I'm going to factor out that single x. And what's left, remember factor means divide, so you're taking an x out of each one. So that's x squared plus 10x. Subtract 49. Add 25. All right. Now it does say group, so I have to group this. I can't combine these. I have to group this. And notice this one is the one that has the minus sign. This is the constant with the minus, so I'm going to group the 25 with these two. All right, so x is on the outside. And I'm actually going to put a bracket for a different kind of grouping symbol. And I'm going to group x squared plus 10x plus 25. See, because what's going to happen is this is always going to be a perfect square trinomial. And because it factors into a single binomial squared, this always has to be plus. So that's why we move the subtraction one by itself. Now, if you're catching on to this, I could write minus 49, or I could right away write the 7 squared. But I guess for right now, I'll just write minus 49. Don't forget this, GCF is part of it. It has to ride along the whole time. All right, so I'm going to factor the perfect square trinomial. Square root of that is x. Square root of that is 5. Numbers that multiply to 25 that add to 10 are 5 and 5. The signs are the same. They're both positive. So this is an x plus 5 quantity squared. Subtract. I'm going to rewrite 49 as 7 squared with the squaring on the outside. Guess I should have made a bracket. All right. Now this part here is dots. All right, here's a square minus here's the other square. So I'm going to set it up, x on the outside. Remember, it's always a plus b times a minus b. Notice I'm leaving this space a little bit bigger because I have a quantity. My quantity here, x plus 5, is my a value, if you will. So this becomes x plus 5 plus 7 times x plus 5 minus 7. And we're not done because you have to combine this inside the grouping. Don't forget about your GCF. X plus 5 plus 7 is x plus 12. And x plus 5 minus 7 is, this is 5 subtract 7, is negative 2. And I'm finished because none of these have any other common factors. So this is how you do these when you are directed to do factor by grouping and you have two constant terms and you have to group a trinomial and a monomial. You force it to become dots, which is the difference of two squares. And then at the end, you have to combine your like things inside the grouping. All right, example 3. This one's a little bit different because here I have an x squared. We're going to look for a GCF. 16 and 225 have no common factors. Clearly not. So there is no numeric part of the GCF. Here I have 2 x's. Here I have 0 x's. Here I have 1 x. And here I have 2 y's. So here is my distinct, unique, second quadratic variable. And notice it's subtract here. That's the one that's going to get grouped by itself. So in my parentheses, I've got 16x squared. And I'll want to write this as a trinomial in order of descending powers in standard form. The 225 is going to come after. I'm going to switch these two. Okay, so I'm going to write plus 120 times x plus 225 and then subtract 144 y squared. I'm still going to do the same thing that I did up here. I have to trick this polynomial. I'm getting, you know, like here I tricked the 49 to become 7 inside a parenthesis with a squaring on the outside. I'm going to trick this too. You know, what squared would be 144y squared? Well, that would be 12y. You just take the square root of it and move the squaring on the outside. This is a perfect square trinomial. The square root of this is 4x. Signs are the same, they're both plus. Sometimes this could be negative, but in this case it's not. And square root of that is 15. Right? Multiplies to 225, adds to 120. Oh, but look, a is not 1 and there's no GCF here. So you have to be careful with these. I could check it by doing 4 times 15 is 60, and 60 doubled is 120. Or I could FOIL this out. That's really what I did, but a shorthand way. All right, so now I have dots. right? You see a square, and the difference. This is dots. My A is 4x plus 15, and my B is 12y. So dots always factors as A plus B times A minus B. My A is 4x plus 15, and my B is 12y. My A, again, is 4x plus 15, and my B is 12y. Now, maybe you're thinking you're putting the 12 and the 15 together, but remember, this has x, this has no variable, this has y. So I could just leave it right like that. I am finished. Notice none of them have any other factors in common. In other words, 4 has no factors that divide 15. So this one's done. This one's not too terribly bad. All right, the last one. A little bit different and a little bit longer. So let's do this one in blue, I guess. All right, this is almost dots. Okay, you see 81 is a square. So I'm going to rewrite 81 as 9 squared. Subtract. So I'm not grouping this one because it's already like in a grouped form. And I'm pretty sure there's one of these on your quiz. So really practice this one. All right, this is dots. We clearly made this and converted this to dots. It's the difference of two squares. So dots, memorize it. It always factors as A plus B times A minus B. And I probably didn't make these parentheses wide enough, but I'm going to make this space a little bit smaller because my A is 9. But now my B here is a quantity 2x minus 1. It wasn't as imperative that I put my quantity in parentheses when the quantity was in the front, like up here, okay? Because I didn't have anything in the front to change any signs. But I do have to put parentheses around it in here, because you're going to see what happens. This is 9 minus 2x minus 1. Now you've got to distribute this negative. All right, so I'm going to clean up grouping symbols here. This becomes 9 plus 2x minus 1. Because, see, I'm just distributing a positive 1 through here. But over here, I'm distributing a negative 1. So this becomes 9. Subtract 2x. Add 1. I'm still not done because I have some constants inside the grouping. 9 subtract 1. Well, that's 8. So this grouping has 2x plus 8. And this grouping is negative 2x plus 10. But I'm still not done. Still not done. Because this grouping has a 2 in common. See, up here in the original problem, there was no GCF. We just had to, like, take it on to make it look like dots. And then we had to, here in this step, make sure that we put this in parentheses so that we could distribute the negative. Now we've got GCF inside each group, actually. Here there's a 2, so I'm going to take the 2 out. And when I divide each of those by 2, I get x plus 4. Here, not only do I have a 2 in common, but it's a negative 2. Remember, any leading negative, you need to take it out. So I'm just going to put this in a parentheses because it's multiplication. I can't write this without parentheses because it is multiplication. You need the parentheses around it. Okay, so please remember that. Because if you just write minus 2, then you've changed the dynamics of what's happening in this problem. So I have to have the negative 2 in parentheses because it's multiplication between all of these things. So I've got x, and then 10 divided by -2 is -5. Not done yet because this looks weird. So I can, since 2 is on the outside and -2 is on the outside, I can multiply those together and get -4 times your quantity x plus 4 times the quantity x minus 5. Now I'm completely finished. This is factored completely. And there it is. So, are they difficult? I don't know. Are they tricky? Maybe a little bit. Can you learn it? Absolutely. Do you have to practice it? For sure you have to practice it. Otherwise, you're not going to learn it. Okay, so there's a couple of these on your worksheet that you have for homework. Please, please, please show me all the steps. Please, please do not try to use another device to help you with these because you won't learn it. You won't be able to do it on your test. Okay, so one more time, what did we do? Well, this was set up to look like dots. I had a quantity squared, a subtraction, and I knew I could rewrite 81 as 9 squared. Clearly, this is the difference of 2 squares. This value was my A, this value was my B. Dots always factors as A plus B times A minus B. Because you have a quantity that you're subtracting, you need to group this, and you distribute the negative through. Okay, that changes this to 9. Subtract 2x, add 1. You have to combine your constants inside these groupings. We ended up with 2x plus 8, -2x plus 10. Even, 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 even. There's GCF. The first GCF is a +2. The second GCF was a -2 because it was a leading. And we always, it's customary to put the x term in front of the constant term. Okay, so we factored it out. We wrote it so that it looks like multiplication because it is multiplication. Okay, so you needed these parentheses here. All right, so you're going to have to be extra careful with showing your work. Slow at first. And remember, I don't know how many problems are on the worksheet, but you can always practice those same problems again. We don't need 30 different ones to learn the algorithm. Just 2 or 3 problems is about all it takes to learn the algorithm. All right, so you know what to do if you have a question. You have live Google Meets this week anyway, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. However, remember, your test is going to be on Thursday. So post on the homework discussion or ask a question in the Google Meet. Have a great day.